I don't know about you all, but lately I've been seeing all across social media so much content about the American dream and if it's dead. And usually people say it's dead. I believe the American dream is not dead, but if you are trying to chase the American dream in a way that looks like it's looked for the past several decades, you will miss out and you will lose. I do not believe that the American dream for people my age and younger is always going to be a house. In fact, I think it's probably not going to be in home ownership. So I was going to film this video out in my tent. That's what I had planned, but because of some certain circumstances, I was forced to come to this motel. It's pretty run down, not the greatest hotel, but I'm glad to be here while I deal with some issues that I'm going to share on my main channel. So let's talk about where we are right now in July of 2025. Average rent is over $2,000. 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and most people under 40 will not own their own home. As an 80s kid, I grew up with the idea of you go to college and then you get married, you get a good job, like maybe you're a stay-at-home mom. It's the dream, right? It's like the middle class dream. And I did go to college, and thankfully, I do not have student loans. I do not have any student loan debt, and I realize that I'm very lucky, and I'm very grateful for that. However great of a time I may have had in college, it absolutely did nothing to get me a job, and that is not an exaggeration. Out of college, I worked at Starbucks, and it never panned out for me to get a good job. Of all the jobs that I've had, I don't think any of them have ever required a bachelor's degree. And yeah, and it's almost like when I got out, it's almost like this feeling of nobody believing me that I couldn't find a job. And this was sort of after the dot-com bubble burst. I don't know if I have that terminology right, but it was like in that time. And it was like, that's like right when I was trying to find a job. And I could not find a job in my field. I did try and go back to graduate school, but it just didn't really work out, and it was very expensive. And yeah, it did not work out. Honestly, at this point, I'm very glad that it did not work out, because if I'd continued that route, it would have just been more debt for me. And honestly, looking at the economy now, I don't think that what I was pursuing would have panned out in the form of a really good full-time job with benefits, what we would call something that would like lead to the American dream. So as somebody who was born in the 1980s, I just really grew up with kind of the Reaganism and the whole trickle-down philosophy. And that was just sort of the hope that if we cut taxes and we do all these things, X, Y, and Z, then the wealth is going to trickle down. And growing up, like as a kid, that was just a bunch of nonsense, like, okay, whatever. But now I can say that at my age, that trickle down is a myth. It does not exist. It is totally false. It does not trickle down. The wealth rushes up. And I'm not a communist, so please don't come after me. I'm not a communist. I'm a solopreneur. So I consider myself like an entrepreneur. I'm doing my own thing, my own 1099 work. I work really hard. So please don't come at me. I'm not a communist, but I really think that this is just too much as far as actually having faith that the corporations we're going to do the right thing. It was totally wrong. It was totally false. It was totally never going to happen. And we know this just by looking at Walmart. Okay, before we take a look at Walmart, let's just look at like the fallout of this whole trickle down stuff. What we thought would lead to wealth or middle class American dream for workers. So meanwhile, we have wages that have flattened, homes costing 6 to 10 times the average income, college tuition that has exploded to the likes of 1.7 trillion in student loan debt. CEO pay has skyrocketed to the point that it is nearly 300 times what the average worker makes. We all know that healthcare is ridiculous, and I don't know about you, but I've been really affected by, I'm sure you have too, been affected by grocery grocery prices, as I'm traveling around the country, I'm really noticing the prices, and these fluctuate from different areas, and it is getting really, really expensive. So according to Google Gemini, the average Walmart cashier in the United States makes about $14,000 a year. And that seems very low to me. I know that wages do really fluctuate. Like, you can make $14 an hour, you can make up to $18 depending on where you live. And a lot of these employees are also not full-time. So that could be why that is so low. But less than half of US Walmart employees receive company health insurance and may rely on Medicaid instead. I found a really great article in the Los Angeles Times just about how corporations, namely Walmart, Amazon, McDonald's, they're basically, this is like the antithesis of trickle down. Not only are they not giving back or helping their employees have a better life, but they're stealing from other people, stealing taxpayer dollars because they need to subsidize their own workers. They can't give their own workers benefits, or they stop at just 30 hours. And so we are left, other taxpayers are left paying to help subsidize their employees. What a joke. In this Los Angeles Times article, it's by Michael Hiltzik. And this blew my mind. McDonald's in 2013 established quote unquote, a McResource line. And it offers advice to employees about how to access Medicaid and food stamps, among other services. And I've also, when I was looking into all this, I was reading a lot of Reddit threads, and people will personally testify, like employees of Walmart will say, yes, when we were working at Walmart in our orientation, we actually had it in our training how to get food stamps. This does not sound like these corporations did what they were supposed to do at all. And that really opens up a big can of worms about just how these corporations, like, they're profiting from Medicaid, from public services, public benefits. And that just really boils my blood up. I don't know who my wrath would be directed towards. I guess it's just a systematic thing, but it just makes me like really angry that whenever I hear like trickle down economics, I'm just like, no, like Reaganomics, no, don't call me a leftist. Don't call me a leftist, but Reaganomics or whatever. I mean, that's total BS, like complete BS, because look what happened. Look what happened. I just think it's shameful. I just sort of grew up under this idea that, the big businesses, the private sector businesses was really like, the gate to wealth. And I guess it was at a time. I don't come from an overly wealthy family, but I come from a solidly middle-class family. And I think that the corporations in their lives, I serve them well. I think about my grandfather. He worked for one company like his entire life. He retired with a pension. He had a really nice life, like one income household, raised a kid. Same with my parents. My dad worked. We had one income in my home. We were very comfortable. 2 kids, 2 cars, a mortgage, vacation. And yeah, so the generations before me, like, they did get the American dream. But I think that my version of the American dream, it's not going to look like my parents or my grandparents. It might look more like my great-grandparents or those before, because even though they didn't have as comfortable of a life, like, I'm very proud of what they accomplished. And so I think the American dream, it is changing, and I think it may look like, and I really want you to take me seriously, but I think in some cases it can look like maybe van life. And I don't mean struggling van life. I mean just somehow creating a life for yourself that is sustainable and somewhat enjoyable. And there are some arguments about how sustainable van life really is, and I do agree with that. But it could look like owning land. It could look like homesteading. And I'm not saying this to be snarky. I'm really not. But it could also mean leaving America, because not everybody can leave America. You really have to be in a pretty privileged position to be able to leave America. You're going to have to if you're not independently wealthy, then you're going to have to be able to have an income abroad. And that's like a whole thing, an income that doesn't depend on like being here. If you're a van lifer and you get your income off of YouTube, that doesn't mean you can move to Thailand, because if you change your content, that's probably going to work, not off the bat. So it's kind of a tricky privilege thing to be able to have that privilege to go abroad. And that privilege, of course, can be gained. You know, some people I do see, they work really hard to start businesses, and they do gain that ability to go abroad. Because let's face it, I don't mean this in a mean-spirited way, but I've spent a lot of time abroad, and I know that life can be pretty nice over there. Not everywhere, but I think we're all figuring out that life in America, it's not easy. And so, yeah, I think that it's definitely changing. For me, home ownership is not the dream for me. What if I don't like my job anymore? What if it doesn't work out? Or what if I get laid off? So many people getting laid off and they have mortgages. I don't want to be in that position. So I think the American dream, it's definitely changing. For me, the American dream was escaping these terrible low wages that I've been dealing with ever since I've gotten out of college. Ever since I graduated college, it's just been one low wage job after another. And I've never been able to get past $20 an hour. And these are just terrible jobs. It's not like labor of love jobs. It's not like working for a family business or working for my own business, or I don't know, some kind of partnership where you're really involved. I mean, these are just really terrible jobs. Working at Starbucks, working at a daycare, it was just awful. I mean, you know, they treated the kids terribly. They treated us terribly. It was just a terrible situation. I'm trying to think of other jobs that I've had. I mean, just really awful, 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 abusive jobs. Yeah, terrible, terrible. I'm not even going to talk about the hotel job. That was awful. And so for me, I feel like I actually am achieving the American dream, because I thought that I would be, for the rest of my life, beholden to these jobs that just really made my life so miserable. And I don't want to go down that path, because it is pretty depressing, because I did feel like I did not want to live anymore doing these jobs, because it was just so hard for me. And as an introvert and as a neurodivergent individual, every day, it wasn't just like a boring thing. It could be like a real battle just to get through the day. And so for me, I feel my American dream is emerging as something different. I don't want to share too much about what my actual dreams are, because I don't know, it's like kind of private, but I will kind of give a hint that, you know, it could look like something like land ownership, starting something of my own. I love doing YouTube. That's definitely part of my American dream. I never dreamt that I could actually make some income just from creative pursuits. I never dreamed of that. So I definitely think it's changing. I don't think it's a reason to totally give up on the American dream, but like we also have to like remember that the American dream, I guess, existed before it was to buy a house. I mean, I think it's pretty cool that my great relatives, they had businesses, and I think that's like pretty cool that they did that. I think my great grandfather, he started like a nightclub, and I think that's pretty cool. And so I have other relatives that were entertainers and singers, and yeah, so maybe I'm not actually losing my American dream. Maybe I'm finding it in a way that's more authentic to me. And I think that all of us, maybe if we look to the past more, we can actually be able to move past what has been kind of imprinted into our mind as the quintessential American dream. Go to work, get a mortgage, get a job, have a good life, get a pension, get retired. And as hard as that is, I know it can be kind of traumatic to let go of something, an idea. Change is hard, but I think that if we look within and to our past, maybe our family's past, or people from history who have achieved things, we can move past that. So from my thumbnail, it is kind of ironic that, you know, I have that written on the tent, the text there on the tent, because for me, I actually worked really hard to get to where I could go live in a tent. And I know that sounds pretty crazy, but I actually did work very hard. I worked a lot of hours to buy all that camping equipment. Camping equipment, I thought, oh, I probably don't need. Oh, these solar panels are kind of cute, you know. No, I actually really use this stuff. And that is part of my American dream, was escaping a repetitive, borderline factory-like job. So for me, that is part of the dream. So it's not me, it's not clickbait, it's me not trying to be snarky. It really is, this is just a testimony of how the American dream is changing for me. And I know I'm not the only one, because I see lots of evidence online. I see lots of people doing lots of great stuff. So I guess my message out there is, for the older folks, be happy. For the younger folks who are doing things differently, if you're younger, don't lose heart because you can't do things exactly like the people before you. It's not because we think it's bad or that there's something wrong with it, but it's just simply that it's not attainable. We're not trying to be rebellious. It's just we have to be realistic at this point about our own lives. And I'm sure you all could look at your parents, our grandparents, and start to understand, you know, the decisions that they made and how their life came to be about. So yeah, it's not a reason to panic, but it is a reason to evolve and adapt. Because if you are going to keep trying to do this the way your parents have done this, you will get left behind. Because these jobs, they're just not secure. We're seeing this more and more. So I hope this was interesting. If you enjoyed it, hit the like and the comments, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.